Not only has America started World War III against Satoru freaking Gojo and his team, the culprit behind it, Kenjaku, he's having the time of his life.
Our universe is doomed!
I mean, this guy is laughing at the fact that he will sacrifice 100 million people and is ending Jujutsu Kaisen's story in such a tragic way.
Can't keep getting away with it!
Jujutsu Kaisen has revealed the objective behind the plan that orchestrated everything for the last 200 chapters. We will be explaining 3 major plot points. Number 1, Sukuna is making a deadly comeback and the entire world is in danger, all according to Kenjaku's plan for his entertainment. Number 2, the reason why every character's life was orchestrated for 200 past chapters that we have been reading. Number 3, how Kenjaku is planning to end this series and kill everyone. He has moved on to the next phase of the culling game, targeting Master Tengen, which is a red flag for the non-sorcerers throughout Japan. And this all occurred because of one mistake Satoru Gojo and Geto made 12 years ago. However, before we talk about the past, we must praise the heavens for finally bringing back Choso and Yuki, because it's been ages since we last saw them in chapter 146. But our happiness was short-lived, just like Choso's brothers, because Kenjaku picked this exact moment to have a little reunion with his son. Oh, and by the way, Master Tengen is actually a woman.
You gonna make me act up.
Well, more like a granny. We learn exactly why Yuki seemed familiar with Tengen in chapter 145, and it's because she's a former star plasma vessel. If you forgot all about that, let's rewind a little, and next time don't be a silly willy and hit the notification bell for the channel, because we cover Jujutsu Kaisen on a weekly basis and our community is on the same page. When we look back holistically at the hidden inventory arc, when Gojo was defeated for the first time in his life by Toji and failed to protect Riko Amanai, a normal high school girl who was destined to merge with Tengen, this is because Tengen's curse technique is immortality, where she literally doesn't die. However, like all phenomena in Jujutsu Kaisen, it's always based on balance. So this power also has a crucial drawback. As Tengen ages, her body evolves past humanity into something more of a cursed spirit. This is extremely dangerous, not just for Tengen, but the entire world, because she will become one with Earth and lose all sense of self. To prevent this, Tengen needs to reset and merge with the star plasma vessel every 500 years, a human who is compatible with Tengen. In fact, even Six Eyes users like Satoru Gojo are connected to Master Tengen and the star plasma vessel by fate, making them a target of Kenjaku. Over the centuries, Kenjaku was defeated by 2 of them, leading him to kill a Six Eyes user 1 month after birth, along with a star plasma vessel. But at the time of the merger, a vessel and a Six Eyes user reappeared. Sadly, 12 years ago, Tengen failed to merge with Riko Amanai due to Geto and Gojo taking a gamble on saving her. Moreover, Toji Fushigoro's intervention on behalf of the Star Religious Association led to severing the fate of the Six Eyes users as well as Riko's ill-fated death. Everyone involved in this incident was greatly affected, as Satoru Gojo became the strongest, Geto lost his way, and Toji died. But we had no clue as to what happened to Master Tengen after this whole fiasco. That is until chapter 145, when we learned that the worst possible scenario had come to reality. Tengen's consciousness had become one with the world, and her rationality was only maintained due to her barrier techniques, therefore making Tengen a target of Geto's overpowered cursed spirit manipulation, which is now in the hands of Kenjaku, the man that wants to end the world and revive Sukuna. So the real question is that, was there only one compatible human, the star plasma vessel, at Tengen's disposal? Well, it turns out in Jujutsu Kaisen chapter 202, there was actually more vessels, but Riko was the one with the most potential. And 12 years ago, special grade sorcerer Yuki was also a star plasma vessel.
See, now that's some bullshit.
But if there was more candidates, why didn't Tengen merge? She could have saved everyone the trouble and not caused Kenjaku's plan to proceed smoothly, right?
I'm confused.
Well, I was just as unwilling as Yuki to come to know the real reason. This giant farm, yes, this ugly piece of shit, she had simply decided to accept reality and skip the merger.
Man, what in the fuck is your fucking problem?
After centuries of crushing young children's psyche whilst merging with them, essentially erasing their identities and taking away their normal life they could have lived, Tengen decided to just give in and embrace evolution. In Tengen's perspective, her evolution is nothing more than a natural occurrence, like that of changing seasons. Constantly trying to prevent this process is fighting against time itself. It was unwinnable. No one can win against time. Tengen's evolution was inevitable. If not today, then tomorrow. And she isn't wrong. If Rika didn't die, it would have been another vessel later down in the future. And there's always someone crazy out there to mess shit up. Even if there was a bunch of vessels ready, the potential of all of them dying and failure, it still existed like it just happened 12 years ago. So Tengen finally wanted to stop relying on this stupid system of merging with little kids.
What did he say?
Okay, that sounded wrong, but you get the point. Instead, she wanted to rely on her own powers of being an expert in barrier techniques. Even though Tengen wasn't confident in this, it was still better than the alternative. However, when we look at this from Yuki's perspective, a special grade sorcerer, Tengen took a gamble on her barrier abilities to retain physical form and not become a disaster at the cost of not only herself, not Japan, the entire world. And let's forget the sacrifice of all the merged kids from the past going in vain. She wasn't even certain that her barrier techniques would retain her rationality, but she very well knew she'd become more like a cursed spirit, resulting in her becoming the greatest weakness of the Jujutsu society, as cursed energy can now destroy her and the barriers. The barriers are the reason people can optimize and use cursed energy, being sorcerers in the first place. The majority of the use of cursed energy depends on Master Tengen, though there are some exceptions as stated by Kenjaku back in chapter 136, where even the likes of Sukuna and possibly Kenjaku himself do not rely on Tengen's barriers. Even though Tengen is considered responsible for preaching the foundation of Jujutsu sorcerers 1200 years ago, Sukuna, even Angel or Kenjaku could very well be practitioners of their own school of thought, especially in Sukuna's case. Utilizing optimized curse energy is something his character will never depend upon. Rather, he is above all of it. In fact, Tengen's effects on Jujutsu actually tells us more about Sukuna's own power. Due to her barriers, she was able to amplify curse energy to the point of bringing out a high concentration of it in Japan. This brought rise to stronger bloodline techniques and prominent Jujutsu families. However, Sukuna in his fight with Jogo showcased that all curse techniques and knowledge of it is available to him. It is as if he has already optimized his own curse energy with his own barriers. He tells Jogo that he knows true Jujutsu and creates real flames that can destroy a spirit that is made by fire itself. Whoa, that's how overpowered Sukuna's understanding of curse energy is in comparison to others. Regardless, Tengen's decision induces Yuki's reaction because it meant that kids like Riko Amanai died for nothing, whilst people like Suguru Geto put their lives at risk for them. Hence, Yuki feels Tengen is just making excuses to try and justify her action by simply using Amanai's incident as an excuse to forego the merger. Yuki found this intolerable as a former Star Plasma vessel herself. In fact, she even says if the Star religious group's approach was different, she would have sided with them. The implication of her statement is extremely important. If the group protected and saved Star Plasma vessel candidates instead of killing them in cold cold blood, not just Yuki, but even Suguru Geto and Satoru Gojo would have allied with them willingly, and Kenjaku's plan would have fallen flat. Although Kenjaku would have still found a way, let's not forget he was planning this for 1,000 years. What's even more interesting is that Yuki can hear the voices of the star plasma vessels Tengen has merged with in the past. It seems that Jujutsu Kaisen's theory of soul and body being two different entities is at work, which you would have known if you had the notification bell on, as we covered it last week. Because whilst Tengen herself cannot hear them, Yuki being able to do so relates to her power that makes her a special grade. And you know what? We already have a huge hint towards Yuki's ability to speak to the soul, all the way back in chapter 136.
I'm afraid we need to use math.
In chapter 91, there was a small wisp of Geto's soul still left in his body, overtaken by Kenjaku. This responded to Satoru Gojo's call by taking sudden control of his arm. Kenjaku said this had never happened before in his 1,000 years. In chapter 136, Yuki seems like she's talking to Kenjaku about the possibilities of curse energy, but she oddly says at the end, "I was talking to Geto." Now we know she was in fact continuing her conversation with Suguru Geto regarding their ideas on how to resolve the issue with non-sorcerers and sorcerers in chapter 77. Now without context, this sounded very weird and didn't make sense at all. But from chapter 202, we know that Yuki definitely has some sort of power to speak to the dead. So she was really talking to Geto's soul. After all, a power like this would actually make her a special grade. This hints at the theory that when Kenjaku is finally cornered by our main cast, especially Satoru Gojo, there's a chance that Geto's soul will take control of his body for the slightest bit of moment and hold Kenjaku back from retaliation as a poetic justice and lose.
However, coming back to the present, Yuki considers it her duty to make Tengen realize the repercussions of her careless and selfish actions. This explains why she was so fixated on researching anomalies like Maki and Toji as ways to break free from cursed energy, as this was her philosophy. Most of Yuki's life revolved around Tengen. Due to luck, she skipped out on bearing such a heavy burden that kids like Riko couldn't fight against. In chapter 136, she clearly states that her ideal world is one where humans don't suffer because of cursed energy and its phenomenon at work, which was basically cursed spirits. And the best way to do so was through two methods that she told Suguru Geto in chapter 77. Either optimize cursed energy to make everyone a sorcerer, or eradicate cursed energy from humans as heavenly restriction does. Now, of course, she says that she returned to the original principles, but this doesn't fit well with Kenjaku's perspective because he prefers the option of optimizing cursed energy. Ever since Kenjaku declared his intentions in chapter 136, it was a big question of what his motives really are. But this chapter finally made it clear that Kenjaku is just a pure psychopath that wants to kill 100 million people just to see what would happen.
You serious?
Yep, that's because he planned out everything, including the culling games, for 1,000 years just for the shits and giggles. Literally, that's it. Just because he can. After fatally endangering all the sorcerers trapped in the culling game colonies, Kenjaku seems like he has all the time in the world, even to indulge his son Choso in a conversation about his real objectives. We already knew that Kenjaku is chasing evolution, but he clarifies further that his goal is to seize Tengen and forcefully merge her with the non-sorcerer population of Japan. This will turn them all into sorcerers, but that is just a step rather than the end goal in Kenjaku's grand plan. He wants to know if there's a new form of cursed energy that can be born out of this, because 1. Currently Tengen is closer to a cursed spirit than a human. 2. When she evolves and merges, it will be like a cursed spirit fueled with the cursed energy of 100 million sorcerers. And lastly, 3. What if Kenjaku can extract this cursed energy like Maximum Uzumaki? In a simpler sense, Kenjaku is kinda like Orochimaru from Naruto Part 1, just like like Orochimaru said that the first one to mix blue and yellow created the new color green. I want to do something similar. If blue is the chakra, then yellow is the seal, green is the jutsu. Just as there is no end to the variety of color, there are tens of thousands of jutsu in this world as well. Kenjaku feels like a kid in front of a blank canvas. His tools are cursed energy and sorcerers. He is a wildly curious mind with a major psychopathic streak who just wants to see the limits of cursed energy and what happens in extraordinary circumstances of chaos that only he can create. Case in point being his creation of the death painting cursed wounds, Choso and his brothers. Kenjaku says that even as he was working beside sorcerers, he wondered what would happen if he could advance cursed spirits to a higher level. This chapter, along with Jump Giga's interview, confirmed that Kenjaku as Noritoshi Kamo had created the death painting cursed wounds in order to create a superior race, a crossbreed between humans and cursed spirits. However, much to his disappointment, Choso and his brothers failed to be something extraordinary, even after their reincarnation at Mahito's hands, which is why he discarded them, and we all thought we had daddy issues. But this is exactly where Sukuna comes into play. Ryomen Sukuna, the once human sorcerer who is a terrifying cursed object, ready and just waiting for his chance to reincarnate in his full form. He is a fine specimen of a superior race himself. Hey, no! I know what you're thinking, go to horny jail right now. What I mean is that not only could the most brutal sorcerers kill him, but Sukuna also traversed a millennium to reincarnate through his indestructible fingers. He is most definitely something unheard of and represents an immortalizing evolution. Furthermore, Sukuna completely understands the core of cursed energy, being one of the enlightened beings in the series, which must be quite fascinating to Kenjaku as he too wants to create chaos to understand cursed energy. Kenjaku's interest in him and his revival makes all the more sense now. In fact, there's a chance that all the death paintings were created as Kenjaku was inspired by Sukuna, which is why he also personally took part in creating the perfect vessel for him in the form of Itadori Yuji. What's crazier is that he probably welcomes the fact that Sukuna is planning some evil path of his own, which will just add to the chaos Kenjaku very much desires. After all, he already said he doesn't desire a world without cursed spirits and wants to bring back the vicious Heian era, the golden age of cursed techniques. And who better to kick all of that off than the icon of terror, Sukuna himself. At this point, every action any character takes in the series only contributes to Kenjaku's plan, whilst he just sits back and enjoys a bloodbath unfolding with popcorn. As much of a sick motive as this is, we have to acknowledge that Kenjaku doesn't have some grand ambition. He is purely evil just for the heck of it. In fact, he's prepared to witness the founding titan Eren, or even a clown face coming to life through the accumulated cursed energy. And yes, he laughed. It's sick that nothing phases Kenjaku, not even death and destruction, and he has everyone, including the world governments, dancing on his palm. Gotta say, this dude really knows how to capitalize and manipulate the corrupt side of humans to his advantage very well. Well, that being said, the way Yuji had parted ways with Choso back in chapter 146 had certainly looked like a death threat, and now Kenjaku is the harbinger of death for real. Unless Yuki decides to intervene and somehow fend off Kenjaku, it's pretty hard to see how Choso's gonna make it out of this clash alive when his dad doesn't even take him seriously. Sadly, even Yuki interrupting their fight and preventing Kenjaku from seizing Tengen will only risk the fate of Japan and even the world itself, as Kenjaku said. There are impossible choices in front of our main cast that they have to gamble their lives on as sorcerers, following the theme of the entire story. None of us can guarantee tomorrow, but we must gamble and fight to see it. Now, if you think this is peak fiction, then watch this video on Chainsaw Man about Makima and her secret with Pochita, because if you haven't already heard, that too is peak fiction.